This is the Last of Us podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and this time we're talking about The Last of Us, Episode 6, Kin.
I saw a man kill his own brother. To save her, while I just watched. And today I thought that dog was going to tear her apart because it smelled something on her. And all I did was stand there. I couldn't move. I couldn't think of anything to say. I was so afraid. You think I can still handle things, but I'm not who I was. I'm weak. Lately, there are these moments where the fear comes up out of nowhere, and my heart feels like it stopped.
Welcome back, fellow survivors. This is the Last of Us podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about The Last of Us, Episode 6, Kin. I'm one of your hosts, Chris.
I'm one of your other hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow funguis. I am your third and final host, John.
Yes. We're all mushroom heads in this after the last episode. Definitely at the end of the last episode.
Yes.
I don't know whether are you a clicker? Are you a runner? Are you the bendy kid? Are you the Goliath massive tank?
Of course.
If you were a fungal guy, what would you be?
See, of course, I forgot Chris wasn't on the podcast for episode 5, of course. So we haven't heard what Chris even thinks about episode 5 ourselves. Chris, I know you asked the question, but I'm going to throw it straight back at you. What did you think of episode 4 and 5?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved the story, especially it's the gut punch ending of Sam.
Mm-hmm.
Really just seeing how you build that story of what happened in Kansas, hearing how Fedra in Kansas was, or Kansas City, Casey, were bad. Like, they were the worst of the worst.
Mm-hmm.
And not fully understanding what's going on from when you get there in that initial opening to seeing how they get in there, and but then seeing in episode 5 the shootout from a separate direction, and how Sam and his brother are able to get to Joel and Ellie and then work together.
Mm-hmm.
And then hearing, I like there's additional kind of hints and kind of Easter eggs about the down underground where they were training the school with the kids about some survivors. And the whole time there's that just one black tunnel in the background where like every horror thread in me is like, someone's going to pop out of there. Someone's going to pop out of there. So never happens.
Exactly.
And you're like, where are all the, like, what has happened to the infected? To get to that lovely scene where you have the sniper to get there and see the Joel shooting the driver, hitting the house, and then over the period of it, you see it slowly sink, and then hear the noise, and then you remember hearing, they drove them underground.
Yes, exactly.
And you're like, oh my god! And then seeing the different types of infected.
Yeah.
All very similar versions of the clickers, but like...
Yeah.
Clickers and runners mixed in, but just seeing this massive Goliath one, and the little child acrobat kind of in the car, to getting the very much the gut punch ending for Sam.
Yeah.
Like, again, I haven't played the game up to this point, like beyond, like, again, pretty much beyond the second episode. So this was all new to me. I know the story of The Last of Us. It is, you think you can't have any more heartbreak? Here's some more heartbreak for you. Gotta like this character? Well, that character's not gonna survive because it's The Last of Us.
Yeah.
The only bit I'm missing is literally Joel and Ellie going, but we're The Last of Us.
Well, that is not going to happen.
No, exactly.
Thankfully, it's not going to happen. But I'm glad you enjoyed those episodes. We mentioned this on the podcast last week, but yes, that section from the sniper to the attack of the infected is from the game, and it is our favorite section of the game. It's such a good moment in there. So I'm glad they translated it the way they did to the show. Obviously, much more character development in there in the episode as well. But heartbreaking ending for the last episode. But the best description I've heard of it since the episode aired and since our podcast aired was, that's what you get when you sweep everything under the rug, like they swept all the infected out of the city without killing them. So
the traditional Irish way, really.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about arguments or issues. Let's sweep it under the rug.
Exactly. Exactly.
Overall, look, I absolutely loved it, but we're not here to talk about what I loved on 4 and 5. We are here to talk about episode 6 because the kin is good. Kin is family. It's all about family.
Yeah.
I just want to remind everyone, The Last of Us World End Pub Quiz Question 6 will be up later this episode. You can email all your 9 answers at the end of the season to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. And for the extra chance to get your hands on The Last of Us Part 1 for PlayStation 5 or PC, don't forget you can rate us on Apple Podcasts and send us an email with those details. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah. Already gotten a few entries in so far for the pub quiz. But if you're saving up to share your answers at the end of the season, I think our closing date's around the 20th of March, which is about a week after the finale of The Last of Us ends, and then we'll do our wrap up for the season and announce who the winner of the pub quiz is. So get all your answers in. If you haven't caught one or two of the questions so far, pop on over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com. There's a little button that says quiz at the top there, and you can see all the questions for the Last of Us pub quiz and the Star Trek Picard quiz in case you're interested in that too.
Yes. And if you like the podcast, make sure you head on over and check out our brand new website that is brought to you by our supporters over on patreon.com. Yes, go to tvpodcastindustries.com and marvel in the beautifulness that is the new website.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And the best thing about it is exactly the same web address, tvpodcastindustries.com.
Yeah.
Makes it much easier for everybody, right?
Yes, definitely. And a big shout out and thanks to our supporters. As we say, it keeps the lights on, it keeps the servers running, and of course, every now and again, things require a little updating.
Oh yeah. Sometimes really cool updating. So yeah, go over and check that out. Good stuff. We also want to hear your thoughts. If you want to email us, you can tell us your thoughts about any of the shows we're covering. Email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. And that's the same place you can send your entries in for the pub quiz.
Yes. But gentlemen, should we jump into some of the episode details for episode 6? Derek, why don't you tell us who gave us what with this episode?
Absolutely. The show is based on the PlayStation game written by Neil Druckmann, directed by Bruce Straley from game publisher Naughty Dog. The show is written and executive produced by Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann, and this episode, once again, written by Craig Mazin. This episode is directed by Jasmina Zabanek. She's born in Sarajevo and is an award-winning movie director, but this is her first episode of The Last of Us. So excited to have her on board. Interestingly, on the official podcast, they were talking about the fact that as she was born in Sarajevo and lived during the war, they actually offered her the episodes in Kansas City of the war, and she said, I have absolutely no interest in directing that. I want the character episodes. I think understandably, to be honest. I don't think you want to take your experience like that into a TV show.
No, that's definitely a fair one. Maybe slightly too much like history.
Absolutely. So she's responsible for all the wonderful vistas we get to see in this episode.
And there are many. Really nice.
Definitely. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for The Last of Us Episode 6, Kin?
Sure. 3 months after the death of Sam and Henry in Kansas City, Joel and Ellie have made their way to Wyoming to find Joel's brother Tommy and find the Fireflies. But they are lost and winter has set in. With a little help from an off-grid elderly couple, they find their way to the town of Jackson. The working commune is heavily protected to avoid external threats, but Tommy is happily living there with his wife Maria. An emotional Joel reunites with his brother and eventually confides with Tommy his concern that he's becoming too old and slow to see Ellie to safety, and asks him to take her the rest of the way as he worries that he'll get Ellie killed. Despite her protests, Tommy gets ready to escort Ellie to the University of Colorado, the last known location of the Firefly scientists near Wyoming. But at the last minute, Joel regrets his decision and agrees to take Ellie to them himself. Leaving Jackson on horseback, Joel promises Tommy they'll be back. At the university, now overrun by monkeys, they learn the scientists have moved on, possibly to Utah. But as they go to leave the campus for the new location, they come across an unknown group of roving hunters. Silently, they make their way back to their horse when one of them attacks Joel. In the struggle, Joel kills his attacker, but is stabbed. Under a hail of bullets from Ellie, the two escape on their horse to the outskirts of the city, where a severely injured Joel falls off the horse, collapsing to the ground. In the cold and snow, Ellie suddenly feels alone and helpless.
There we have it. That is an ending. Will, is that the end of Joel? I was going to quickly say that basically, depending on how you see it, most colleges these days are still kind of full of monkeys and roaming bands of hunters. Like, just depending on, like, that's just college, really.
I think that's Monkey University that you're thinking of, Chris.
Hey. Where I got my degree is not kind of the point here.
Yeah, I did like
yes.
that conversation, actually, where Ellie's kind of going, you mean they did classes here? Adults?
Yeah.
And it's like...
Adults chose to go to school here?
Yeah. And it's just Joel's response, well, they were sort of adults.
Yeah.
But, okay, let's very much jump into our points, our top moments for this episode. I suppose the one that we could probably all kind of jump in on and have a quick discussion on is the sassiness of the old couple that have been taken hostage, or at gunpoint at least.
Oh, it's so cool
by Joel.
To see these two in here. Graham Greene, who I think most people probably know him from Dances with Wolves, but he's such a great actor that we've seen him in so many things over the years. And Elaine Miles, who's playing his wife in this here, known from Northern Exposure, probably her biggest role as well. So having these two characters in here who effectively had gone off grid way before the fall of society. I think it's such a great scene to see the two of them kind of being confronted by Joel and Ellie as well, as they wander through their house, completely lost in Wyoming. We kind of did talk about this in the first episode, but Joel was saying, I'm going to Wyoming to find my brother. And we were going, okay, that's 200 miles away, plus Wyoming's a very big state. How is he going to find his brother? And yeah, totally lost in here. I love the little jab from Ellie where she's saying, yeah, we missed all the road signs in the giant forest out there. You know, another little bit of sassiness from our own main sassy character there.
Definitely. Like for me, this was like the comedy part of this episode. And I really, really enjoyed it. I loved the deadpan comedy from the two couple. Yeah. And I just loved how that interacted with Ellie and Joel. Just seeing her use her eyes to like look over it, you know, he didn't hurt me. And the guy just says, I have eyes, you know, and then Joel with his threat around, show me where we are on the map. And the answer has to be the same as your wife's. And it's like, well, did you tell them the truth? And she goes, yes. Are you telling me the truth? Yes. It's like, so good. And it's just where Florence then, says, oh, and he has a kid, and Ellie's, oh, can I come down now? And there's, no, don't come down, but she comes down anyway. And, you know, they might jump us. And she's like, dude, they're like 1,000 years old.
It is great. It just the couple, Marlon and Florence, are just so much fun. Particularly Marlon's reaction to Ellie. It's really good.
But even just then, Marlon saying, "Who's this little psycho?" It was just all really on point, funny, just so good. Loved this a lot. I mean, even it's even when Marlon says, you gave them soup?
It's cold outside. Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah. I have a thing. Any sassy animals, sassy children, I love.
Yes.
And then now I'm adding in sassy grandparents.
Absolutely.
Like, it's just basically when you combine, like, all it needed now was like a sassy animated character, and like, this is perfect trifecta.
I love it. I love it.
It was just, but there's too much sass then, potentially.
Maybe.
Like, it's a sass off, if you will.
Yeah. But it's even the fact that you can tell they've spent all of their time together. You know, I'd say their world wasn't hugely different before the apocalypse. I guess they just aren't going to places, as Marlon says, don't go to anywhere people were, because that's now completely overrun by infected. But it seems like this is what their life was like for quite a long time. You know, I love Marlon saying, "We moved here before you were born, kid," to Joel, who's 56. Like, and Florence saying, well, I didn't want to move here. Just still holding that back. Like, again, it would be 50 years out here in the wilderness, and she's still holding that as a grudge against her husband, who she's stuck with all the time.
Yeah, and totally isolated, totally off grid in the sense of when they say they're going to find the fireflies. You have Florence saying, oh yeah, we get those a lot in the summer with the bugs. And then when it's explained to her, she's like, there are firefly people, and just like kind of chuckles to herself that this is the most ridiculous thing ever.
Really good.
Really good. Yeah. I mean, they also as well then set up that warning, the notion of the river of death, about the bodies piled up on the other side, infected and uninfected. And, I do like the moment where he says, what advice would you give to those heading west? When Joel says that, and Marlon just says, head east.
Yeah.
Like, so you're kind of going, what the hell is about to happen?
And that kind of does set up the rest of the episode, because you're basically, you see the expanse of just pure white and nothing. And the couple are like, there's nothing out here except for death.
Yeah.
Like, basically, we see dead clickers, or dead infected, I think they say, and dead people.
Yeah.
People go there and never come back.
And I was wondering, and I guess since you're not a game player, Chris, I wonder, that's probably a question I'll ask you. Did you feel the tension in this episode? Given that we've had 5 episodes where every episode we've had someone die, things go down really badly. Did you feel that as tension in this episode, that something really bad is going to happen here with the setup? Because I did feel this is another episode that feels much more like a Western than I was expecting coming into the show. You have this setup of the 2 wandering strangers coming into town and getting the warning off from the old couple in a cabin. That's kind of a traditional kind of Western setup, as well as some horror movies too. But what did you think, Chris? Did it have that tension set up for you?
It did. Like, a lot of this show is very much feeling like Lone Wolf and Cub style stuff, where you do have this elderly, gruff Ronin or Western cowboy looking after the young apprentice. And you get that, like, they're sitting around the campfire talking about the stars and their wishes, which is great, and we can kind of chat about that later.
Yeah.
But the whole time, Craig, I should say the director, has kind of chosen to blanket everything in a way that it is dark out there. It's just pure, like, so when they start to fall asleep, you're like, okay, they're going to get attacked.
Yeah.
Like 100% by people or something. And then when you have that additional discussion of, was that the river? I thought that was the river.
Yeah.
You're like, oh no, you're already there. Oh no.
Yeah.
And then you get a big dam, and you're like, oh no, there's going to be something there. They're going to have to cross.
Yeah.
It's just consistent. The best one I had is there was a pan back when they first crossed the bridge. There's a pan up, I should say, of kind of the upcoming landscape. And in the far left of the screen, there was this just big building. Kind of just a great building. And it just caught my eye because I was like, oh, they're going to have to pass this biolab.
Right.
And that's where, like, because it's the middle of nowhere, they were testing on the infected and they made a super infected. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just based because they racket up the tension consistently.
They do, and I think actually just that whole meeting at the start is a really good setup because, in a sense, until the very end, nothing as such happens to them. There's moments of danger when they're surrounded by the people on horseback.
Absolutely.
But actually, it plays out in a much calmer way. But because of that warning, you're constantly going, well, I was anyway, constantly thinking, oh, something bad's going to happen now that they're in Jackson.
Yeah.
Oh, who are these people on the riders? It ends up being fine. And I guess part of it is that any one of those points could go and could head south really quickly.
Exactly.
Depending on who you are. But
yeah, and
it kept a tension throughout the episode, which was really, really well sort of maintained, I think.
Yeah. And we've also had the setup for this back in episode 4 as well. You know, Joel and Ellie, as you say, Chris, is sitting out in the wilderness, Ellie seeing the Aurora Borealis and them talking about their hopes and dreams. When they go to sleep, Joel says, I'll take both watches tonight. And then you see him on his side again, exactly as he was when the guns were held over him by the two brothers back in episode 4. So you do have that feeling of tension, I'm sure, as well, when you're in those moments with Joel. So this has all been building, but it all helps to kind of they're using those kind of pieces that they've built throughout the season so far to amp the tension, even in an episode where you get to the end and go, actually, none of that was tense. It was quite a nice story where he goes to meet his brother, isn't it, this episode? So he finally gets to reunite with his family, you know. There's quite a nice storyline that's there, but they've ramped up the tension, even though it all actually worked out very well in the end. So,
yeah, exactly.
But they keep you on edge as well by adding the proxy that is the panic attacks that Joel feels.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, is he going to have a heart attack? They just drip feed these additional, just as moments as you start to feel things are going well. They inject small pieces that we can discuss now kind of as we go through our 3 points that make you continuously on edge.
Yeah.
That kind of keep that tension just at the right level. That like you don't drop into pure kind of endorphin like, everything is fine. Oh, no. Like they just keep you at a nice steady kind of like 80 on this kind of blood pressure monitor.
Exactly. But it is much easier watching the second time, thankfully, once you've gone through that. Just before we move on from the opening of the episode, interestingly, another episode that doesn't have any flashback in it at all. I think I mistakenly, as part of my joke last week about the flashback only being 10 days, I mistakenly said there was a flashback in episode 4 and there wasn't. So this is the second episode where we've had no flashback at all, no time back in the past at all. So all taking place in the present moment with the two of them. But a 3-month time jump in this episode. Yeah. So they have taken a very long time to get across now from Kansas City to Wyoming. It's taken 3 months, mostly on foot, as by the sounds of things. That is what they've done. They didn't get any other vehicle or anything like that on the journey. So, and
it's winter time. It's snowing. So, you know, things are getting tougher.
Yes. And we will say, again, exactly the same as the game. This is where the game takes place. It is winter time, and there is a 3-month gap after the last big moment, I suppose, before this, at the death of the kids. So, yeah. And
it's okay. I'll kind of jump in and take the first point here, which is the commune and the communists of Jackson.
I love that.
Because this is cool. Like a majority of all the situations and the people and everyone we've met to date have been the worst. Like, not the worst, but like, when we first meet Tess and Joel, they're basically in a federal controlled city or kind of sanctuary, and it's not good. It's like it's not good for the people. It's run down. Then we got all the other communities that we've met, and then you've got this completely idyllic community. And some of the best parts is like they had electricity from the dam. They had like Christmas. They had barbers. They had a cobbler. Yeah. They had cinema.
They had a bar.
Yeah. They had a bar with their own. He's making his own bourbon by the looks of things.
Maybe. Joel does give it a look as if it's not quite up to snuff, but probably better than any bourbon he's tasted in 20 years.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And once you add the bacon,
absolutely.
You know,
who needs it? That's all you need. Yeah. I'd be with Tommy on that, actually.
Bacon and bourbon, I'm good.
Sort of.
I'm like, that's perfect. So one of the really interesting things is seeing Jackson, seeing what it is in comparison, and learning about why it is the way it is. In that it's white fields and nothing all around it. It was a gated community that they'd kind of built up out of. So they have a line of sight all around it. You see when they ride in. Yeah. And bandits and infected alike are kind of mercifully or unmercifully killed and left out to build that persona of something's out there. It's a dead zone.
Exactly.
They get a really good reaction and kind of a really good kind of piece from Tommy around. It's like they build that reputation to keep everything safe.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you also get the reason why Tommy's been radio silent, right back to the first episode, in Boston, because, they've cut radio chatter so they don't draw attention as well. So all of this, and they've got a decent, dog that can sniff out an infected.
Yes. But it doesn't.
No.
Yeah.
That is the bit I was interested in, because technically, like, that's like almost like, is it like a COVID sniffing dog, for example, right? Where if you were infected in that point in time, you technically the dog would bark. But if you're immune and you've gone through COVID, the dog's not going to bark.
Kind of. I take it that the dog sniffs out cordyceps. And because Ellie doesn't have them inside her because the infection hasn't gone through her body, she's no longer infected, effectively.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's very, very hard to tell, but that was a really tense scene because
it was.
I love how they set it up where Joel is being checked and you almost see it as if, okay, well, Dad's safe, that's fine. Therefore, Ellie doesn't need to be checked. It's almost going that way. He kind of goes, okay, we can breathe now. Everything's going to be okay. And then they say, right, now the girl. And then suddenly you can see everybody starts to tense again. But nice tension breaker where the dog just licks her face and the two of them are in a loving little moment between the two of them. That's quite nice. But yeah, as to why the dog doesn't detect the infection, that would be my guess. Is just because there is no infection in there at all.
Yeah.
Or if it is purely on smell, then because the Fedra detector gets her as infected.
It does, yeah.
And so it's probably something to do with, the blood, but it could be to do with the antibodies or whatever is happening that, that it's there in place, but the body can deal with it.
Yeah.
So, or very weak, and so on, whereas the dog is purely from sniffing or something like that, or
Absolutely.
even just how the person is behaving,
potentially.
like we saw with the neighbor's dog, starting to, it just senses that something's wrong.
Back in episode 1, yeah.
Or she still has Bill's kind of jerky in her pocket, and that's what
maybe that's it.
But I just like the commune that is Jack. Like, I like that idea that there is still these holdouts, not even holdouts, I suppose, these new sprung communities.
Yes.
Where there is good people. Like, and the fact that Tommy is there, the fact that you get this history, the fact that you get kind of what is being built and what they talk about and how they talk about it, and that there is a kind of a governing body, and it's not like Walking Dead where there was like the chairman in one of
the governor you're thinking of, Chris. Yeah, but actually, this is very similar to one of the communities in the Walking Dead, Hilltop, which was led by Maggie and the whole team of survivors, where they all were working together like a commune. But I must say, from the minute that gate opened, when they walked in, I could see that HBO money, not that AMC money. AMC had to spread out that money across 16 to 20 episodes, some seasons, whereas the show only 9 episodes, so they can really put the money into what a commune that was set up for 6 or 7 years at this stage, I think is roughly what we have, about 7 years. I think is what they say. It's been around for a very long time, and Tommy's been brought into that community there. So you could, I think you can really see it on the screen. It's the type of place you're going, if the world completely collapsed, I hope I would be in a group of people that would set up a community like this.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And then we do get introduced to Maria, which is really one of the cool things. XDA, and partner of Tommy. And we get kind of the some really nice interactions with her and Ellie.
Yes, we do.
Which I think are some of the kind of the best parts, where like Ellie has the shower and new clothes, and Maria traded some of her stuff for a maroon or purple jacket.
Aubergine, I think we call it over here,
yeah.
but over there it's eggplant, right?
Yeah, she refers to get your eggplant coat before they go off to the cinema. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But before the cinema, we do get the haircut scene.
Yes.
Where she interjects herself to warn her about Joel. And that automatically gets Ellie's back up.
Yeah.
And I think it's done also in a way to get the audience's back up. It's delivered in that way because you start feeling, whoa, who are you?
Yeah.
Like we've been with this man for months. Technically, well, Ellie's been with him for months. We've been with him for at least 5 hours. Like, you swan in the first few, like, minutes of an episode and, like, telling us to mind our backs. And it's delivered in that way.
Yeah.
Now, it's delivered in a way that you are it is supposed to be kind of motherly or somewhat protection based on the kind of watch yourself. You don't know who you're with.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Ellie straight away kind of knocks that back.
Yeah.
And it's really good. That's a really nice scene. That then gets pulled into the cinema where you see Ellie sitting there going, well, what the hell's going on? Where's Joel?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I suppose that's one of the good things about this show. It's one of the central ideas here. We're 20 years on from the fall. And everybody that's survived to this point, most everybody, let's say, has done something that they probably regret, that they probably wouldn't have done beforehand to keep themselves alive. So just hitting that point again, that Joel has done really bad things. I love that Ellie turns it on and going, well, Tommy was there too. Tommy did exactly the same things, but you're okay with him. So why can't I be okay with Joel? You know? But I love the kind of twist of respect as well from Maria, where she says to Ellie, you're keeping a lot from me. You should. The only people that can hurt you are the people that you trust. So be careful who you trust. Trust no one, effectively. So, I do like that kind of twist within the conversation as well. She does respect Ellie by the end of their chat.
Yeah, and I mean, for Ellie as well, this is all new. You know, it's Joel knows his brother. Joel's just met Maria.
Yeah.
For Ellie, she's just met Maria and Tommy, but also this sense of almost what life was like before the fall.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when she's having her meal in the canteen and she's just wolfing it down. She goes, I don't think I've ever had a full meal.
Yeah.
You know, and all this kind of, it's almost like overexposure to all of the senses, and the fact that it is the most normal that you can see. I like the way in this episode as well, there's a few knockbacks. So I like when they're going to the stables and there's a herd of sheep there, and she just kind of looks at them and goes, look, Joel, sheep, bah, you know, because Joel in their campfire talk wanted to own an old farmhouse to raise sheep. And she's just like mocking him.
Absolutely.
Or
because they do with their toes.
Exactly.
They're quiet and they do with their toes. And unlike you, Ellie.
Exactly. And it's just, it's also like in the canteen where she's eating, and you know, she's kind of quite snappy with them. But she says, you've got two 90-year-olds out there effectively shitting themselves. Because of how you're portraying yourself with the bodies stacked up and so on.
Yeah.
And actually, possibly Florence would like to be in Jackson.
Yeah.
Maybe not Marlon, but certainly Florence.
Yeah. They're doing pretty well out there. They should be okay. Anything else in Jackson, Chris?
No, that's really it, because there's a few more character moments, but where I think I have a strange feeling that you guys might talk about it.
Yeah. I think there's other stuff that goes on in there, but I know you mentioned the word a few times, but I do think one of my favorite moments in the episode is when Maria calls it a commune, and therefore everybody that lives here is a communist, and you see former army recruit Tommy going through that realization in front of his brother that he's now a communist, which is something that's absolutely abhorrent to him in the past, or would have been in the past. I think that's really, really good. I like that moment.
It was. Yeah. I guess that is triggering, to say the least. No pun intended.
Yes. But we do have another point in Jackson, I think, Joe and John.
Yeah, mine's about Tommy and Joel reuniting here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was like a two-step reunion here. You know, there's that absolute joy, the catch-up, sharing whiskey, you know, talking about their life, even though Joel, you know, lies to him initially about Tess.
Yeah.
And obviously the girl, in terms of Ellie.
He lies a lot, but he does seem like he's happy to see his brother at least.
Well, he is. I mean, it's like the shout out on the street. They go for that catch up where they can talk about it. You know, Tommy is more honest about Maria and that they're pregnant, but this is where Joel asks him to come along with them. You know, for Joel, his expectation here has been he's going to reunite with Tommy, and then it's back to how it was before. You know, in effect, Tommy replaces Tess to some degree.
Yeah.
In this, and he's like, well, I can't because my wife, she's pregnant, so I'm not going to be able to go and carry on with you to the university, to the Firefly headquarters in Colorado. And you can see, you know, Joel immediately gets his back up. He's annoyed, and he goes in for that, like I guess families do, that kill, the hurt, you know, the retort, about, well, we'll soon see if you're a good father. Yeah. You know, even that, you know, this is the first time they've met in months, and he's immediately sort of attacking his brother.
First time they've spoken in months. First time they've met in years.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Because it's been a few years since they've been outside of Boston for Joel and Tess early on in the season. We hear that, and that's been a few years, but it's been a few months since he's heard anything from Tommy at all. So Tommy's lived here for that number of years. I think we get that. It's 4 or 5 years he's been there, I think.
So it's a long time, you know. I kind of also like that callback where they, you know, where Joel talks about, you know, those things we did, and Tommy is, we murdered people. Yeah. You know, but exactly, don't sugarcoat it. But it links in with Maria's warning to Ellie because, in a sense, Tommy does take ownership of what happened, whereas Maria's excuse to Ellie is, well, he was following Joel. Yeah, and so I thought that was a nice little touch, just those different perspectives here. But
I love the description that Tommy gives of it. Effectively, we did the things we had to do to survive. Those were the only things we knew how to do to survive, but there were other ways we just didn't know them effectively, which I just thought was a really great way of describing why they did what they did. Yeah.
And so, you know, they've only just met. The euphoria of it is like really quickly dampened in this, and as Joel walks off. But then I think you get the more intimate chat where Joel is confiding and telling the truth to Tommy in the Cobblers, where, you know, he tells that story from the beginning that Tess has died. He tells him about Sam and Henry, all the things, and importantly that Ellie is immune. You know, he isn't just doing this for a big paycheck like he said back in the bar. She is immune, and there's a chance that Tommy can bring his newborn child into a better world, one where they will be protected against the Claudiceps.
Exactly.
And it also reveals what we've been seeing throughout this episode. You know, we see the kind of anxiety or panic attacks immediately as Joel and Ellie came out of Florence and Marlon's cabin. And that was in response to Marlon telling Joel, your brother's definitely dead. There's no way your brother could be alive. If you go out any further west here, your brother's definitely gone. And that is his first panic attack that we see. That's it. It's the kind of, you know, it's the panic, not necessarily that a panic attack, but the panic of waking up and having fallen asleep during the night. And it's Ellie who's guarding over him, not him guarding over him and her. Yeah. You know, it's the dog sniffing, with, you know, feels helpless in that moment. So all these different panic attacks. He has another one in Jackson as well. is where he's like, I'm just getting older. I don't remember my dreams. I'm getting slower. I'm worried I can't react to help Ellie get to where she needs to go.
Yeah. And he even mentions
she will die.
Yeah. And he even mentions Ellie saving him in Kansas City, that 5 years ago he would have taken apart that kid. Yeah. It had to be Ellie that shot him, and they may not have gotten out otherwise, you know? It's such a moment of pure honesty from Joel, and probably the best scene that Pedro Pascal has played this season so far, where he is not the gruff cowboy on the back of a horse coming into town that'll save everything. Yeah, you know, but it's so well built on its platform throughout the season. This idea that, you know, he doesn't want to go up loads of flights of stairs because his knees hurt. He's in his 50s now. He has back pain. He's deaf in one ear. You know, those are all things that we saw as kind of not jokes, but you can see the difference in the generational relationship between him and a teenage girl, you know? Whereas now you're hearing him almost fall apart because he's saying this to his brother, being completely honest with him. I think I'm going to be the one that gets her killed because I'm no longer as fast as I used to be. And she needs someone like you, someone who knows the area, someone who still has their skills and abilities. She needs you to protect her, not someone like me. It's a real bare soul moment to his brother. It really is.
And it's a call for help. I mean, you know, he says, you need to take her, you know, you have to take her. It's a plea ultimately coming from Joel that, you know, because she could be the future for humanity, he can no longer be entrusted with this, as you say, because of his deafness, his weakness, his fearfulness, and so on. So,
and it all could have ended so many times so far as well. The end of the hope for humanity, because he's the one with his finger on the trigger and his sights aren't as good as they used to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and, you know, just one final thing really here from me is I absolutely loved Gabriel Luna in this episode. Absolutely. You know, his portrayal of Robbie Reyes in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or as Ghost Rider, really, really enjoyed that. I actually just felt like I'd seen this massive progression in him professionally, his skill, you know, whatever. That's what I mean. It's not something meant to be disrespectful. It's just like, as a much younger actor doing that show, very different, you know, reason for that show, very different type of show. And to this, and I was like, was so like impressed with him here. I absolutely loved him on screen. It felt real great screen personality. And I was just like, I thought it was fantastic, his portrayal here. I actually wanted more. I was like thinking, I wish we hadn't lost him after episode 1. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I really liked what he brought. And I guess it's just that other dynamic for Joel as well, because he has this pure confessional with him, which he's not able to do with Ellie.
Yeah. He doesn't want to show any kind of vulnerability around Ellie. Firstly, because he doesn't trust her to begin with. He doesn't trust and doesn't believe that she's infected and immune. Secondly, because she's a child just like his daughter. And now towards episode 5 and 6, because he doesn't want to show vulnerability to her because he feels it's a weakness. But he can show that in front of his brother when he can trust him again, when he gets the lowdown on what is really going on in Jackson. So yeah, I love that progression of Joel. And you can see it in him after these scenes. After he gets out of Jackson, you can see how much more open he is. You see the real Joel joking and educating and talking with Ellie, which he never had done in the past. That's much more of what Joel was like with Sarah back in the first episode. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
For me, this whole arc in this episode is really showing me, well, first of all, the chops of Pedro Pascal. He's like 47 and he's playing this late 50-year-old man in Joel.
I play that role as a 47-year-old every day, Chris.
I know, but he's seen some stuff. He's seen some, like, you see him carry this weight, especially this. And in particular, starting with these panic attacks, which the way they chose to film them is just amazing, with this kind of almost throbbing kind of strobe of kind of blurred vision around. So almost as if you were experiencing the same thing, but they shifted the focus ever so slightly around Joel, that as you watch it, it's almost in time with his heart, which I found absolutely such a choice and just beautiful, just a way to kind of show that. And yeah, like the growth of this character towards the end is just fantastic because you see him, you've seen this man change. And this is why The Last of Us has been this kind of keystone in video game storytelling, and now to be HBO storytelling, because it's not, no offense to The Walking Dead, it's not a zombie, or it's not Army of Dead, it's not the Day of the Dead, it's not those. This very much has just always been the story of a daddy and a daughter in different variations, or just the story of its family, very much kind of the Fast, the Furious. It's such
a different show, and I think we've been saying that from the first from the start of the season, you know. And one of the things that's really evident in this episode as well is you hear about Joel and Ellie's march across the country for 3 months. You hear about them saying they looked into cities that were full of people, and now they're just full of infected. But you don't even get one moment of that.
No.
Again, another episode has gone by where we see no infected at all.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't think there's even the threat of the infected in the episode at any point.
Not really.
There's no moment where you feel like around the next corner there could be infected.
Well, you get that
at the end of the episode. You do.
Yeah, I mean, you get in the university, definitely you get the sense that okay, they could be lurking around here.
Okay,
but you're kind of you. And I guess this is a bit of the contrast, you know, from that warning from Florence and Marlon at the start. And then you begin to hear, you know, that actually there aren't as many infected out here because they're in the middle of the mountains.
Yes.
And that's why they've placed Jackson in the middle of this really wide valley in the mountains, is because it's effectively like, you know, shooting fish in a barrel.
Exactly.
Because you can take, you know,
headshot them from 300
exactly,
yards.
And you get that from Tommy using his skills to, you know, shoot the heads off any infected or, you know, dangerous other groups.
I think you might be exaggerating that from Joel kind of going, even on your best day, you wouldn't have been able to do that 10 years or 20 years ago. There's no way you're able to do that now.
So you get the sense that, you know, there's relative safety here behind the walls of Jackson, but also in the immediate area.
Yeah.
It explains why, despite the warning at the start, they've had this relatively uneventful, at least from an infected point of view, route to Jackson.
Absolutely, especially if you're told you're going to be going across the river of death.
Exactly.
We should mention that though as well. Just one thing from that's been removed that was in the game. Most of these scenes that are in this episode don't take place in Jackson. They take place at the dam, which is reserved for just a joke. This episode, a great joke, though, where.
Pun.
Yes, exactly. Where Ellie arrives and just says "damn," and Joel says that she's not Will Livingston, who is the writer of the pun book that we saw earlier on in the season. So I know I'm explaining jokes. I don't need to explain jokes, but it's a very good one.
You do. Please tell me more.
There you go.
But I think the other great thing about this reunion between Tommy and Joel is it actually has the potential and almost leads to, you know, a massive bust up with Ellie because she overhears the conversation of effectively, Joel passing the protection of her, that mantle, to Tommy. And for Ellie, it's, you know, as she confronts him, back at the place that they've been given, she says, if you're going to ditch me, ditch me. And, you know, at the same time, you see Ellie's emotional nous where she says, you know, what are you afraid of? I'm not her, which is the bad idea that she brought up Sarah.
But she's only just learnt that by accident from Maria.
Exactly.
Yeah, she never knew about Sarah.
She
Joel.
never knew, and
once
that's the
mentioned
other bolt for Joel here, is because he didn't expect her to bring that up.
Yeah.
You know, and ultimately there's this potential for a rift. But I like that you get Ellie's thoughts, don't say I'll be better off with someone else, because in truth, I'll just be scared again.
Yeah.
The fear over time has subsided with her being with Joel.
Exactly.
But ultimately, Joel
every single person in her life has left her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But ultimately, Joel is, come dawn, we're going separate ways. We're heading separate ways. Tommy's going to take over. And I really enjoyed, with the fallout of this argument.
Yeah.
Where Joel's back in his bedroom and he's remembering Sarah, and you get a flashback to her. There's that memory of Sarah, and the music around it before he turns off the lamp is just superb. It was absolutely so good. It's just the way it played with the memory of him seeing Sarah, and it was strings, but it felt like it was being, and it was the, it is part of the theme, but it felt really raw, but also improvised.
Yeah.
It didn't, it wasn't polished. It was just a really nice moment of where the music sort of reflected those memories of Joel. Maybe the imperfect ones, like he's saying, he's not remembering his dreams, he's becoming forgetful, he's going deaf.
I know the feeling, Joe.
And I just thought it was, and it just went with him switching the light off to get that evening's sleep.
So maybe that could be considered our flashback for the episode then.
I think it's more a memory.
Because he does have the moment where he sees a girl in the crowd in Jackson standing in front of the fire. She's got the same hair, this remarkably awesome hair that Sarah had in the beginning of the season. Nico Parker, the actress who played her. I think actually Nico Parker was on set for that scene, so that it did look exactly like Sarah, because it was the actress playing her until she turns around. But what I loved about it as well is that she's got a young child in front of her as well. So it's almost like Joel is saying, if this place exists at all in this quick moment, he's saying, if this place existed, my daughter could be alive here and I could be a grandfather and that could be my grandchild. He's seeing all this in that moment by the fire. I think that's a really good moment to kind of pin where Joel is.
Exactly. But I think Joel sat on the bed in the house. It's a memory. It's not a flashback. Okay. It's not telling you a story of back then. Yeah. It's him recollecting that after this huge argument. And I think even just bookending that argument with that, it suggests then his turnaround the following morning, where he's there saddling up the horse to effectively stand Tommy down and take Ellie onto the university.
He's still a little bit gruff in that moment, though, as well, isn't he?
Definitely.
He's there going, I came down here before dawn, half an hour before I knew you were going to come down here to saddle up the horse and leave, and then I'm still here. He's still not saying to her, I'm really sorry, we shouldn't have had that argument. I'm definitely going to be the one that will take you on to the next place. Like, he's still not being really open with Ellie.
Or he's just, that's how he's putting it to her, so he doesn't lose face.
Yeah, it was just like, and it was almost like I came down half an hour ago to kind of go, and I still find myself here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm constantly finding excuses not to go right now.
Yeah.
And
I found that moment so cute. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
That was the moment I was just like, cause again, not knowing how this is gonna play out, I was like, okay, so Tommy takes her, they go off, get stuck somewhere, and Joel has to do the last action hero rescue because he's followed them.
Right.
Kind of thing. And like he's having to track them behind them because he rides off to the sunset and then turns around to chase them, kind of thing.
And I think what really aids this as well, you mentioned it before, Chris, this is a HBO production. This always will draw a great caliber of actor to a show, but also involving Craig Mazin in the show with his success with Chernobyl, also involving a highly respected game that has lots of buzz around it, is getting in actors that you wouldn't expect to see in these shows. You know, even Regina Wesley here as Maria being in the show, massively successful on True Blood, had a great career there. So having her in here in this role of Maria, which is this episode does hinge on the kind of things she tells Ellie and how she's dealing with Ellie, but also having Gabriel Luna in here, you don't expect him to be left behind at the end of the episode because you're going, we've waited 5 episodes to see him after the start. He's definitely going to go on this road trip with him. Oh, actually, no, he's not. He's going to stay behind, and Joel's going to take on what he should be taking on and bring Ellie off to where he needs to get her to.
Well, that's it. And I mean, that rift that could potentially have happened in that moment, that passing of ways between Joel and Ellie actually becomes the reverse in, you know, like we see when they're back on the road, where he's teaching her how to shoot the rifle. He's teaching her about NFL positions and the rules of the game, what happened in the world before, such as, you know, the way of that world, that he was a contractor, all of that, pulls them together, probably gives Joel more comfort in dealing with her now that in effect the unspeakable, which is Sarah, has been spoken. Yeah. You know, in a sense, almost like it just needed to get out there.
Exactly.
And yeah, I agree with you as well, Chris. That moment in the stables I thought was really, really cute. I just love the fact he goes, you deserve a choice, and just then her duffel bag is just flung into his midriff. Yeah, like I'm coming.
There
with
is no choice here. I'm
you know, you know, let's go.
Absolutely.
Effectively,
absolutely. Do you think the showrunners knew what dates these episodes were going to air when they were making the show? It's really unlikely that that's what happens normally. And in this case, last week's episode took place in Kansas City, and the Kansas City Chiefs were in the Super Bowl. And this week's episode, Joel's teaching Ellie about the rules of American football, and it's airing the week after the Super Bowl. I just find that really weird. There was no mention of it in all of the other episodes, and the 2 episodes that bookend the Super Bowl have connections to it.
No, I just think it's really, really good timing. It's like Hideo Kojima's game, Death Stranding, all about people being in lockdown and like all these things. And that came out pretty much just at the begin. Well, it came out just before COVID lockdown and all that stuff. And like, it was just like, oh my God, these people are prophets. How'd they know?
Absolutely. I think that's it probably from Colorado, right? And from the re-meeting of Tommy and Joel, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the last point then, the last moments in this episode when we get to the University of Colorado, which is another point on the journey that doesn't really seem to lead to what they want to see. They're trying to get to the Firefly doctors that can test on Ellie and try and cure the infection. But when they get there, the Colorado University is completely empty. I do love that they kept the monkeys in for the game.
Definitely.
It was so cute to see the monkeys running wild in the University of Colorado. There's indications that those monkeys were the ones that were being tested on in the labs in the university, or in the by the scientists effectively. So they've now gotten free and they're overrunning the university. But again, I mentioned earlier on, and you guys actually mentioned as well, that there was no infected in the episode, but there is a feeling that if you walk into the university at a completely empty, massive structure like this, that you could find infected in there.
Definitely.
Yeah, I get what you mean, that there was a possibility of that, but it is completely empty. They have they get a kind of a guiding idea that they could be going off to Utah as the next place they'll be going to.
All the pins lead to Utah?
Yes, yeah. So why Utah? Why have the Fireflies relocated there? Is it better equipment? Is it are they getting all their resources together? Are they all Mormons?
Possibly.
Yeah. Salt Lake City.
Yeah. maybe.
Yeah.
But what's more important here to the episode is, as they discover their next destination on this cross country journey, a group of hunters happened to be walking through the university itself. So whether they've been watching them before they got there and have caught up with them, or whether they followed them here, or whether this is just literally they are scavenging and happen to come across the university when Joel and Ellie are there, we don't really know. But it does get quite brutal, gets quite dangerous for Ellie and Joel. You know, we've had those warnings throughout this episode of the dangers that are out there in the world, and this is exactly the kind of danger that you run into as a group like this that are potentially going to take your life. The fight that we have between Joel and this hunter as Ellie gets in the horse, I thought was really good. The fact that he smashes his baseball bat and then that's what he uses and end off stabbing Joel with the baseball bat. You're kind of wondering, did Joel cause that in a way? Was it accidental on the guy's behalf? Would it have been better if Joel had just been hitting the side with the baseball bat rather than getting stabbed by this bat?
Also, why did he pull it out?
Well, that too.
That stuff's in there. You're like, you leave it in there because otherwise you're going to bleed.
Yeah.
And you think he know that.
Yeah, I think he's just in shock in that moment.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that people always say, you know, those warnings of what you do if you're attacked by a bear, you know, or what you do if a lion's charging towards you, you know. All great things to tell you in advance of it happening, but when it actually happens to you in real life, are you really going to listen to that, or are you going to go, hang on a second, did I just get stabbed? And then take the knife out?
Well, that's it, yeah. And I mean, it's this group, whoever they may be, are these the people ultimately that Florence and Marlon were warning about? Because I mean, even coming from Jackson to the university, again, Joel and Ellie, I think it's Ellie that says, I don't know what the elderly couple were on about, because it's another 3 days and nothing's happened to them.
Exactly.
And then you get the event that happens to them at the campus.
Yeah. I think part of that is to do with people's fear of the world is probably keeping them alive, even though there's nothing out there. But some people are just so fearful of what's going on. Yeah. They keep themselves really safe. And that can be a good thing, or it can end off you not being a part of this community like Jackson. You know, I think they actually would probably have accepted in the elderly couple if they had wanted to go there, because they aren't murderers and they're not infected, right? So
that we know of.
They're murderers to the rabbit community.
Yeah,
you're
yes,
right.
Exactly.
But yes, the world is changing. There are marauders, there are raiders out there, there are these hunters out there, but you may be really lucky and never actually meet any of them, I suppose, is the situation. But unfortunately here, Joel has met them, and again, Ellie's the one that saves him. Yeah. That is part of the revelation to Tommy, is Joel worried that he's not able to save Ellie, and that she's saved him multiple times now, and she does it again here. She's the one that fires the gun in the air to drive off the hunters, gets him on the horse, and gets him out of there. But we've got a massive cliffhanger at the end of this episode, as Joel falls to the ground, blood pouring out of him. So is this a good cliffhanger for the end of the episode?
I think it's more how they get out of it, because I don't think they can kill off Joel, like the middle of nowhere, unless there's another massive time jump kind of thing.
Yeah.
I get the very much the feeling it's like, well, how do they get past this situation? The one thing I'm aware of is that we're due more flashbacks, so I'm wondering if this next episode is like essentially even flashbacks, but more kind of like hallucinations. Is Joel hallucinating on one thing and Ellie trying to stave off an infection and get him to safety and blah 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 blah.
Maybe,
blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So I'm like, it did leave me a bit like, oh, okay, not how I was expecting it, and they've already been on the road for a while. So how does Ellie get him back on the horse? Like, she again is a 14-year-old child, 13-year-old child. She can't lift him onto the horse.
Yeah.
Like unless she starts going into Newton's laws of kind of pulley systems and like wrap around trees and the horse, and there's so much there.
That might be what's needed.
That's exactly what she might do.
Yeah.
I mean, I love just the pure image established with him on the ground, the horse, almost like a bit of a snow blizzard starting to come in, the whiteness, just that whiteness of that snowy sky, the ground, you know, and in a sense that helplessness expressed by Ellie at the end, you know, I can't do this alone. And it's to the point from everything happening. Joel thinks that she's saving him, but it's the team.
Exactly.
You know, it's both of them. She's getting her strength. She's getting her skills from doing that. And, you know, this is foreshadowed at the start of the episode in the first panic attack coming out of the cabin where she thinks he's having a heart attack. And she goes, you know, if you die, I'm effed.
Yeah.
Basically. And that's where we leave it at the end of the episode with her saying, you know, I can't do this alone.
Yeah.
And I really, you know, scared Ellie effectively. I really thought it was, kind of great stuff, to be honest. And I thought Bella Ramsey I really don't know how actors just generate tears in their eyes. I have no comprehension. I mean, they always talk about going back to a sad time or whatever, an emotionally sad time. I can kind of
so good.
I can understand that, but at how I'd have to put Vicks Vapor Rub in my eye or something like that.
I think some of them do that still.
Yeah.
I think that is an old joke.
Yeah, I think, you know, I just have to I have to smear it on my pupil. You know.
You just rub it right in there.
But like, I just thought it was really so good.
Yeah. And I know we already called out, you know, Gabriel Luna and Regina Wesley and Pedro Pascal in this episode, but Bella Ramsey is fantastic as well throughout this episode, playing all those emotions of, you know, being abandoned by the only person that's stuck around, you know, all of those moments, and getting to the end of this episode here and potentially being abandoned in an even worse place, you know, being abandoned in a town full of other people. Hey, not so bad. I know it's an awful moment, but being abandoned here in the middle of nowhere after an attack is awful. So, wonderful job there.
But gentlemen, I think that's the end of all the points. Does anyone have any notes they want to highlight?
I've got a couple of notes, and I'm going to try and keep them as light spoilery as possible, but there's a couple of really nice nods here to the games in the episode. Is that okay?
I think that's
fair. I think it's perfect.
I think it's very fair.
Good stuff. Well, a very cute one. The foal that Ellie pets in Jackson. She pets the newest baby horse that's arrived in Jackson. That foal is called Shimmer, and that is Ellie's horse in the game. So I think that's very cute. There's a character called Dinah from Last of Us Part 2. Major character in Last of Us Part 2. That's possibly, it might just be the character that Ellie shouts out to for being really nosy while she's having her meal in Jackson for the first time. So,
nice.
That's a nice little call out for the second game. Ellie learning how to whistle is also a great one. That's the one that was used to show the passage of time in the game. You see Ellie in the background unable to whistle, and then you have the 3 months have passed and Ellie's whistling as she walks past Joel. So it's another way of that they showed things have happened, which I just thought was cool in the game. So just mentioning it in there. Oh, and I also mentioned, of course, Ellie's damn joke being her pun joke from Will Livingston's pun book. So
yes. Excellent.
So callbacks and nods there. Haven't spoiled anything there, have I?
No,
I kept it vague enough.
I think so.
Exactly.
Good stuff.
And just to clarify, we may be seeing Shimmer again then.
We may be. Shimmer's definitely in the second game.
Yes,
and
exactly.
It's Ellie's horse in the second game.
Yeah.
Yes. So we will see how far they stick to the game in season 2.
Exactly.
Excellent stuff. John, any notes from yourself?
Just the movie that Ellie is, I guess, forced to watch with annoying children around her is Goodbye Girl, starring Richard Dreyfuss. Initially, I was thinking it was Close Encounters of the Old Third Kind, but no, it's Goodbye Girl, 1977. That rich run of Richard Dreyfuss movies that he did.
He was in Jaws like 2 years before that as well, wasn't he? So,
yeah,
that was a big time for Dreyfuss.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. Well, excellent stuff. I have no notes, so that means only one thing. It is time to wrap up our thoughts and just basically ask, overall, what did you think of The Last of Us? Episode 6, Kin Derek.
Absolutely love this episode. Really, really good. I think, as I mentioned, I thought the tension that had been built up in the previous 5 episodes allowed them to breathe a bit more in this episode, but still maintain that tension throughout it, because you're not sure what's going to happen. This will be a regular feature of other shows like Walking Dead, getting to a town, it all looks perfect, and underneath the surface, something's going to happen, something's going to break out, everybody's going to die. And I think by establishing in the last few episodes that somebody dies by the end of an episode, you actually think that's what's going to happen here in Jackson at some point. But having this working community, seeing what Ellie's reaction to it is, as she hasn't really seen a working community outside of Fedra controlled environments that she's been involved in, having the reunion of the 2 major characters, Joel and Tommy, together, the people that we haven't seen together since the opening of the first episode. Those were the characters that you thought you were going to be following through the season as well. Remember, they were the ones that got out at the beginning. Having that reunion, it worked really, really well. Introducing these new characters like Maria, it was fantastic. Loved this episode. I thought it was perfectly played. It almost made me go, if this was a different type of show, if it wasn't on HBO, I think they could bring in writers and tell the story of what's going on in Jackson, how it became this town, and how it goes on into the future. That you could almost have a spin-off show based around Jackson and the characters that are in here, because they're so well drawn. That's not something that's going to happen in the Last of Us universe. That's not how these writers are going to work. This is a show that's going to tell a finite story within its 9 episodes, and then a second season, as we know, is coming as well. So, but they were just so well drawn. It was great to see. It felt like a working place that you don't see very often in these types of shows, and just great characters, great performances. Really loved it. Really excited to see where it's going and what's going to happen to Joel and Ellie next week.
Yes.
Good
and
stuff.
to any writers or producers listening to us, please do not give us a spin-off right now. Like, just give us the season 2 and then we'll take it from there.
If you want to have some kind of web series that holds us over until season 2, do that.
No.
Maybe, but like, along with the
Season 2.
give us
Season 2
Yeah,
first.
just
Season
give
2's
us
coming.
first.
Season 2's coming. How about a podcast based in Jackson that we could host
Ooh. Yes.
as the podcasters at the end of
That'd
the
be good.
apocalypse? There you go.
I'm happy with that.
Unfortunately, my American accent isn't as good as Bella Ramsey's, so I couldn't keep it up
No.
for a whole
But
episode.
we'll learn. We will practice. If HBO want to hire us, I will learn accents.
There you go, Chris.
Well, if you I was going to say, if yours isn't any good,
Imagine.
imagine mine. Like,
Howdy, y'all. Let's all get on to the next.
That's
Now,
exactly what I was thinking.
Mr. Harrison, you come on here now and you give us some really good thoughts of what you thought of this episode, Ken.
I love it. That's
it would feel like a period
that's Chris's
drama.
LA accent. Yeah.
I'd be more like Gone with the Wind, I guess.
I do declare, sir.
Frankly, John, I don't give a damn for that podcast. Right? What did you think
Well, neither
of this
do I.
episode of The Last of Us, John?
Well, given this is family, for me, this is 5, too fast, too fungy out of 5.
Nice.
Yes, it's family. I had another one as well. I was going to say 5 Campus of the Monkeys out of 5.
I like that.
Instead of Planet of the Apes,
Yeah.
Campus of the Monkeys.
I
There
like
we
that
go.
a lot.
Yes.
I like it. John.
But I thought, Kin is the episode.
And
It
another
is
5 out of 5 here.
all about family. Another 5 out of 5 for me. Because I just really enjoyed, in some ways, I think looking back, almost it's necessary to have Ellie and Joel centric, even though you've got Tommy coming back in and a lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah.
It really fundamentally hones down on their relationship, how, in a sense, skewed it is between the two of them, and the realization with everything going on, in Jackson, with the argument, with Joel's feelings around his dead daughter, from 20 years ago, that he has something with Ellie, which you then see on that, as they leave on horseback from Jackson. So I really enjoyed that. I loved seeing Gabriel Luna back on screen after his 4 episode sort of break after being in episode 1. And I really, really enjoyed him here. I definitely want to see more of Gabriel Luna, which is probably a good thing for a season 2,
Hopefully.
and also then, the couple at the start were just superb for me. Really good start to an episode, especially given that, you have the previously on with Now TV, but once that had happened, once we had the opening credits of this 6th episode, you get the flashback, in that sense, or the dream or the memory of Henry killing himself and Ellie's sort of shout out in shock and horror of it. So, to then go into this couple in the cabin, which was just sublime. That was as sublime as everything else. It really was. And I mean, that's what makes a great TV show, is that, in a sense, this quite off-kilter comedy moment is acted so damn well.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel out of place in such an emotionally charged, family-driven episode. So I loved this episode. And yeah, 5 Too Fast, Too Fungi out of 5.
Fantastic, John.
Excellent stuff.
Chris, what about yourself?
This show has just consistently brought its A game for me. It is a story I'm invested in. It's something as I already kind of stated with you guys and with our audience, I know where the story is going. I know the ending. How we're getting there has always eluded me. I just have never played through the game, so therefore I've never known what the beats are. And I'm still so invested, even knowing where we're getting to, just knowing that these individual beats and the focus on the characters. It reminds me almost of Watchmen when we podcast about that, which is nearly every episode. I'm like, this is a 4 out of 5. This is a 5 out of 5. Like, this was the characters were deep. And even though we're seeing, this is probably the last time we'll see Gabriel Luna
maybe
as Tommy, like perhaps like that alone was like, yeah, worth his weight in gold this episode and the first episode. Like, it's just perfect. It's like every time, like when we saw Bill and Frank for one episode, that episode is still some of the best TV I've seen in the last decade. And they've continued that level. Now, like, again, that is probably still the pinnacle of this show right now for me. But each other episode still delivers for different reasons. Like, I feel like Joel in that, like, you're at this high level of stress and tension for each of these you're waiting for the next big thing. And you feel just the tension in the air.
Yeah.
And then you feel it evaporate as they get on the horse together at the end and just kind of ride off. And then you feel that just turn on a dime as you pan away at the end of this episode and Joel is dying and Ellie is there just laying over his body. Like, you feel that emotion. And that's what this is about. This is why Craig Mason and basically Neil from Naughty Dog, that's why when you get these people together and these award-winning directors, you do get this story and kind of show where people each episode are drawn to watch it and watch it and watch it and watch it.
Absolutely.
So, absolutely loved it.
Excellent. Before you have a panic attack, Chris, if you're feeling like Joe, shall we go off and get some bacon and bourbon?
Yes.
Definitely.
Really do with some. So, Johners, do you want to tell us the question 6 for the Last of Us pub quiz?
Yes. Sorry, I'm just stirring my bourbon with my bacon.
Oh my god. Can we actually try that? Can we get some bacon and just stir it with some
bacon
fried
stirrer.
bacon? Yeah.
We are no longer having panic attacks. We are now having heart attacks.
Exactly. Little oil slick of pork fat on top of the bourbon. Yum. Oh, tasty. Anyway, I digress, fellow survivors, fellow fungies, and fellow quizzers, of course. Episode 6, which brings us on to question 6. What is the name of Ellie's favourite astronaut?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that was a cool conversation. I love the fact that Joel also knew instantly what it was before she said it.
Well, that's the other side of it.
Yeah, that was quite cool.
Yes, it was really cool. So one more time for the people in the back row.
Absolutely. I'll shout a little louder so you can hear. What is the name of Ellie's favourite astronaut?
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
It's connected to a song from The Commitments as well, isn't it?
It certainly is.
That's obviously an in-joke that nobody will get until they know the answer to this question, and then they might get it. Right. Thanks, John. If you want to enter our pub quiz, of course, all you need to do is gather together the answers to all 9 questions at the end of the season. Email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Your entry will then go into the hat, along with all the other correct entries, and you will have the opportunity to win a copy of The Last of Us Part 1 on PlayStation 5 or on PC, your choice, or an equivalent prize, which we'll come up with if you don't have a PlayStation 5 or a PC, because we're not buying you either of those. To be in with an additional chance to enter that competition, you can also rate us on Apple Podcasts and send us a quick screen grab of the rating that you put up there, and we will put you in as another entrant on there.
Excellent stuff.
So let's move on to some feedback for this episode and some of the previous episodes too. But before we do, we just want to do a special shout out to all of you who support us on Patreon. This episode in particular was brought to you by our Patrons, including Jimmy Uren. Thank you so much, Jimmy.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jimmy. And of course, as we mentioned earlier on, our website also now brought to you by our wonderful patrons.
Yes. Thanks so much, Jimmy. Great to have your support.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you so much to everyone. And if you want to be like Jimmy or anyone else, you can head on over to patreon.com/tvpodcastindustries, where you can support us for an ongoing monthly amount. And it is much appreciated. If you want to just also buy us a coffee, you can head on over to buymeacoffee.com/tvpi, where you can buy our illustrious editor a coffee to keep him basically editing away and now updating the brand new fancy website until the wee hours of the morning.
yeah, I'll do that as well. I can do that while I'm editing. I can double task.
Yeah, you're a multitasker. Exactly. We believe in you.
Exactly.
But let's head on over and discuss some feedback that we've got. First up, we have some email feedback from Susan, who had this to say. Really enjoyed your podcast. I have thought about Kathleen in episode 5. When she was giving her speech to Henry saying Sam isn't the most important person in the world, I think there was definitely rage at Henry for giving up her brother to Fedra, but also a lot of guilt. It struck me as her trying to convince herself that it was wrong for Henry to save his brother at the expense of hers, when a big part of her feels guilty that she didn't do something similar. Michael is her very first priority, even in death. And we see her sacrifice countless lives as a result. When she tells her story about their childhood, I felt she was a bit tortured, remembering it as she felt he had always been there for her and she ultimately let him down. Kudos to Melanie Linsky for another amazing and complex performance. Thanks, Susan and VT. Thanks, Susan. Yeah, Melanie's performance across these episodes were absolutely stunning. But I also see what you mean with this kind of two-factored kind of thought process going on, her trying to convince herself. Personally, I felt it was more self-serving. Like the story she got and she gave around, there was definitely guilt there, but that end scene, it was very much, oh, no, no one man is above all else, but I'm going to be a hypocrite because my brother is above all else. That's personally the aspect I kind of dove in and kind of hung on to, which is there's a hypocrisy there.
Yeah.
But I do where you're coming from, Susan.
It's an interesting one for me. I kind of mentioned it on the podcast last week. One of the things that I found interesting about her argument is she's not wrong. Like, why is anybody's person more important than anybody else's person? You know, that's kind of the thing. Her most important person was her brother. She didn't have children. She didn't have a younger kid brother. So her most important person was her brother. And because of Henry's actions, he died. So why does that give him leeway to allow his brother to live? So it's not that I agree with it, but she made an argument that I can see playing out in her mind as well. But yeah, it's just a wonderful character, lovely and nuanced for a character that only appeared in 2 episodes of the show.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Mel Ulinsky does that so well. I cannot wait for Yellow Jackets season 2, which is coming out next month, I think. Really looking forward to seeing much more of Mel Ulinsky in that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Susan, and I'm really pleased you're enjoying the podcast, and greetings to you in Vermont, I'm guessing.
Oh, yes.
With VT.
That could be it. I was trying to work out where
But I might be
VT
wrong.
was. Yeah.
I'm just having a good guess there.
Could be Virginia Tech. We don't know.
Oh, yeah.
It could be.
Good stuff.
I was trying to think of every VT, and I was like, I can't think of anything else.
Videotape is all I ever have in my head because I'm really old.
Yeah, thanks
But it
again.
also killed the radio star, so it's huge.
Yeah.
It will always stay in our memory.
Yeah, thanks so much again, Susan. We also got some feedback through on our Facebook group over at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries. First up, Parthenia Dupree Locklear says, "This was an emotional ending. Tough. I have no complaints about this show. Each episode has me ready for the next episode. I'm about to listen to your review. Hopefully you touch on the bloater, because I need more info."
Thanks, Bithynia. I'm not too sure whether we actually talked. We talked about obviously the scene with the bloater and with the clickers that are in the episode, but I don't know whether we really talked much about what the bloater is in last week's episode. And I think that might
clicker.
be what Parthenia is saying. Yes, a bloater is another advanced version of a clicker. So effectively, you move on from being a hunter, being recently turned as an
leveled
effective.
up.
Well, effectively,
Exactly.
it's a video game.
Exactly.
So in a video game, it's a higher level, but this is supposed to be something that's beyond a clicker. It's something that's gone beyond that stage, or has evolved in a different way to a clicker. Yeah,
I have to say, after the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, I felt it was Groot with some kind of condition, bark condition, because of the swole Groot.
Oh, right.
This was a swole clicker.
Kind of.
Or it was Groot.
He was the chunky boy.
There you
He was
go.
the chunky boy.
Exactly.
Except they made him a bit muscly. Like basically he like, you know, had the Marvel abs. Basically, this is the HBO abs, and essentially the bloater got the HBO abs versus kind of bloating out too much.
I know you're saying that as a joke, Chris, but look up the actor that played him. Anybody who want to see what he looks like, he is a very good looking man.
Okay.
Yeah. So, go check that out. He's been in a number of roles in the past, for major productions on HBO, and, a lot of people swooning over what he looks like without that $500,000 costume, over him.
Wow.
For the bloater.
So it's like a present when you open it up.
Pretty much.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent.
Go to his Instagram. He opens it up.
Is he down as bloater? Is he down as bloater on Instagram?
I'd have to look it up. I think just Google actor behind the bloater in Last of Us, and you'll see.
Excellent.
Good stuff.
In The Last of Us, and in The Last of Us, otherwise you may get some very weird things.
that is true.
Yes, you could.
Yes.
Thanks so much for your thoughts, Parthenia, on the episode. I'm glad you're enjoying the show as well, and thanks for listening to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Parthenia.
On this week's episode, Victor Von Doom says, an episode full of powerful scenes like this should rack up critical acclaim, if not multiple awards for the series. The story and cast are tremendous, with the Christmas backdrop as well. I felt the Joel-Tommy reunion a bit anticlimactic. I was at first disappointed with Joel not coming clean about Tess and Ellie, or coming somewhat to grips with his past. Ellie most certainly has an effect on him, which is very touching. She seems to be the more mature and honest of the duo. I was very surprised and pleased to see Rutina Wesley here. It spurned all kinds of True Blood flashbacks. I would like to see more of Maria and Tommy. I really like their house and the community. The target shooting lesson was priceless. The Depeche Mode tune as a recurring theme is fitting. Perhaps next season they might try the Talking Heads' Road to Nowhere. They have got a target this season, so maybe next season they don't have a target. They don't have a specific place to go, so maybe that would be the recurring theme next season.
That is true.
Interestingly, the version of the Depeche Mode song is actually sung by Craig Mason's daughter in this episode. And part of the reason why he asked her to do it is because, as her father, he was trying to get the emotionality of a singer singing the song about her father, like Ellie and Joel's relationship has become in this episode.
Yeah.
So, what a cool idea to cover that song for this finale.
Yes, and thanks, Victor, for bringing up the target shooting lesson, because that was absolutely priceless. I don't think we actually mentioned it in our discussions, but yeah. Making love to a rifle,
Hilarious.
I guess. Yes.
Yeah, they definitely missed a trick though with it, because the shot actually went through the H, not the O. It should have gone through the O. He should have gone literally a couple of bits right, and rather than go through the bottom of the lowercase H, he should have gone through the O to the center of the O. Would have been a better joke.
It would have been. But again, I don't want to repeat things that people have already heard on the official podcast. But one of the things I liked about this is Craig Mazin says this is a 1 in a million shot and 1 in a billion at the moment for Joel, because he's already complaining that he's lost his touch. So the fact that he hit it at all just makes him look really like Magic Dad to Ellie. You know, look, this amazing ability that he has that she couldn't even hit the target at all, and he's able to hit it dead on. So, but really like it. Good stuff. Thanks for that, Victor.
Yeah, thank you, Victor. And finally, we have Jamie Lawson on this week's episode, who says, good episode with a couple of great guest appearances from Graham Greene from Dances with Wolves and Elaine Miles from Northern Exposure. Fleeting as they were, at least they survived.
Very true.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's not the kind of show, but I'd love it if the spin-off series could be with, Florence and Marlon.
Just set it in a house and people come and visit them and they take the piss out of them every week.
Yeah,
Is that what they do? I like it.
It would just be really, at least a one-off. It would be really good. I guess it was a bit like a Christmas special, given there was snow outside.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen Northern Exposure. I'm thinking the only one I remember is the one with the Mountie, and I think that's close, but that's actually not that.
No, that's due south, I think.
That's
You're
it.
thinking
Yes.
of. That's like
Where
a half-hour
Mountie comes
comedy.
down.
Yeah.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
Now, Northern Exposure, I do remember, but it's quite a while ago now.
It was a cult show from the 90s, based in Canada, and had a similar sensibility to Twin Peaks in a way. It wasn't a murder show.
It wasn't like Twin Peaks.
Yeah, it wasn't a murder show, but it had that kind of dark sense of humor.
Yeah, it did. Because I remember that and X-Files were my kind of...
Your jams.
They were my jams, yeah.
Excellent.
I must watch Northern Exposure again because it's ages, and I just don't remember an awful lot of it.
I feel like it might have been the 90s the last time you watched it.
Yeah, it was.
Good stuff. But such great guest stars here, as I mentioned earlier on, you know, HBO being able to draw them in, Craig Mazin obviously adding to it, and just, it adds to the prestige of the show when you have someone that only appears for 15 minutes in a show, and they've got such a big body of work as these two do as well. So great stuff. Thanks so much, Jamie. And thanks everybody for your feedback. If you want to send us any thoughts on our podcast or any of the shows that we're covering, you can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or pop it over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries. Also come and visit us on the website at tvpodcastindustries.com. Loads of contact places on there as well. And you can get the pub quiz questions and every episode of every show that we're covering, because we're covering lots and lots of stuff at the moment, aren't we?
Yep, we certainly are.
Yes. We are covering Star Wars The Bad Batch and Star Trek Picard each and every week because you know what? We want, much like a certain person from a pub quiz question, we want to be in the stars.
Yes,
we do.
Yes, there we are.
And that's along with our coverage of The Last of Us. 3 more episodes to go of The Last of Us. Next week is episode 7. One for the gamers here, Left Behind. I think we all know what that one means.
Yes.
Very excited about that episode. Looking forward to it.
Yes, it's definitely going to be a good one.
And also, in case you missed it, we also went to the cinema this week, because we don't just cover TV on TV Podcast Industries. We also went and saw Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, the 31st MCU movie. That is also available on our Movies on TV podcast feed and TV podcast feed.
It certainly is, and the kickoff to Phase 5.
It is, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, Chris couldn't make it for that one.
No, I couldn't, unfortunately.
Chris.
I know, boo me. Yes, and if you like what you heard on this podcast or any of our podcasts, make sure you rate and review us. But also, more importantly, we also very much appreciate if you can share the podcast, because sharing the podcast is what, gentlemen?
Sharing the love.
Sharing the love.
Yes, or sharing a
indeed.
horse.
Sharing the
Yes.
horse.
Yes.
Yeah, sharing some food.
Sharing a rabbit.
Sharing some bourbon.
Sharing some bacon.
There you go. And
There you
bourbon.
go.
Yeah, exactly. Sharing some bacon and bourbon. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Okay, I'm definitely going off to try that. Thanks so much for joining us. Talk to you again next time.
Yes, thank you so much, and we'll speak to you next week.
Yes, thank you so much, fellow survivors, for joining us in the meantime and before next week. Keep watching, keep listening, and keep surviving.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.